Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call, please?
Alderman Taylor.
Here.
Alderman Sevenik.
Here.
Alderman Collier.
Here.
Alderman Kruger.
Here.
Alderman Zielinski.
Here.
Alderman Grady.
Here.
Alderman Benner. Alderman Nichols.
The first item on the agenda this evening is our three public hearings. The first is a proposed rezoning of 309 De Pere Street. Director Buck, could you give us a brief synopsis?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The property owner at 309 De Pere Street has petitioned the city to rezone this property from the I-1 Heavy Industrial District to the C-1 General Commercial District. Basically, in order to bring the property into compliance with the zoning ordinance, he wishes to use the property for an art studio and also personal service businesses. Those are permitted in the C1 district. They are not permitted in the existing I1 district. The comprehensive plan recommends community commercial uses for this area, which is consistent with the C1 district designation. Therefore, the rezone is sort of a natural extension of the commercial corridor located on 3rd and De Pere Streets.
Okay. Great. Is there anyone here who wishes to comment on that or has a statement about that? Seeing no one, we'll call the public hearing to a close and we'll move to the second public hearing, which is regarding the non-conforming uses, structures, and lots portion of our code.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, in 2011, Wisconsin Act 170 amended the state statutes. It was effective in April of 2012. The statutes were amended regulations relating to the non-conforming use section of the statutes. It basically limited the ability of any municipality to regulate non-conforming structures in certain ways. This statute amendment made multiple parts of our code non-compliant with the statute. In addition, when staff reviewed the non-conforming section of our current code, we found it to be organized in a non-uniform fashion. It was kind of confusing and difficult to read, comprehend, and interpret. Therefore, we went ahead and redrafted the code. Didn't change a lot of the regulation itself, but reorganized it into sort of its component parts. So we added a purpose section. We broke it into the parts, uses, structures, and lots. And we included definitions that corresponded with the state statutes.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak on the proposed amendments to the Code of Ordinances pertaining to non-conforming uses, structures, and lots? Seeing no one, we'll call that public hearing also to a close. And the third public hearing is a proposed vacation of a portion of 11th Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city was petitioned by the Menasha Joint School District to vacate a portion of right-of-way, unimproved right-of-way, in the 600 block of 11th Street. It's basically about a 275-foot strip of unimproved right-of-way in between Warsaw Street and Appleton Street. It basically connects the Calder Stadium parcel to the Bayer Field site. Again, it is unimproved. It's 60 feet wide by 275 feet long, roughly 16,500 square feet. No utilities, public utilities are currently located within that section of 11th Street. As I had said, it is unimproved. Right now it is just grass with some landscaping. And that section of roadway doesn't service any property directly other than Calder Stadium and Bayer Field.
With that, is there anyone here to comment on the vacation of the portion of 11th Street? Seeing no one, we'll call that public hearing also to a close. Item E is public comments on any matter of concern to the city. Is there anyone here who wishes to make a public comment this evening?
Hi there, Tim Lenth, representing Your Daily Grind 204 Main. I'd just like to thank the city and the Common Council for their work in making the possibility for the open area for restaurants and that to have open seating in the walkways and in the sidewalk areas. And again, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank everyone for all their work and diligence on this matter.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to the report of Department Head, Staff, and Consultant. Chief Clone is here this evening to introduce 2 new firefighters, and I will leave it to him then.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight it's an honor and a privilege to announce Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue's 2 newest firefighters, Adam Frymuth and Alex Fickle. Adam Frymuth started his firefighting career. He enrolled into the Fox Valley Tech Fire Program in 2006. And in 2007, Adam was an intern here at Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue. Adam graduated from Fox Valley Tech in 2007, and he then joined as a firefighter in St. John's Fire District in Johns Island, South Carolina. He came back to Wisconsin in December of 2009 and began work as an airport firefighter at the Appleton International Airport until he was hired here at Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue in April. Adam is married to his wife Ashley, who is here tonight. Adam and his wife have 3 children, Adley, Christian, and Rhea, and in his spare time, Adam enjoys hunting, fishing, and sports. Firefighter Alex Fickle started his firefighting career. He enrolled in Fox Valley Tech in 2013, and in the spring of 2016, Alex interned at the Appleton Fire Department. Alex graduated from Fox Valley Tech in May of 2016 and was hired also at the Appleton International Airport in July of 2016. Alex also does fire summer camp for the youth at UW Oshkosh, and in his spare time he enjoys fishing, racing, and bowling. So at this time, I believe Clerk Galeazzi will do their swearing in. So if you wouldn't mind, you can step up into the center.
Which one is Adam?
Hi.
Hi, I'm Debbie.
Nice to meet you.
And you're Alex? Nice to meet you. Okay, so here you go. I'm going to give you that. And I will give Alex's. Okay. I'm going to do each of you separate. All right? So I give you 2. Was I supposed to give you 1? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Adam Freemuth,
Yep. I, Adam Frymuth,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to do my duty as firefighter for the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
to do my duty as firefighter for the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
Winnebago and Calumet counties,
Winnebago, and Calumet counties,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
to serve my commanding officers with respect and dignity,
to serve my commanding officers with respect and dignity,
to serve the citizens of the cities of Neenah and Menasha
to serve the cities of Neenah and Menasha
with compassion, courage, and integrity,
with compassion, courage, and integrity,
and to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America,
and to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America,
the state of Wisconsin,
the state of Wisconsin,
and the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
and the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Wonderful. Okay, so now we'll do Alex. Raise your right hand. I, Alex Freckle,
I, Alex Fickle,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to do my duty as firefighter
to do my duty as firefighter
for the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
for the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
Winnebago and Calumet counties,
Winnebago, and Calumet counties,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
to serve my commanding officers with respect and dignity,
to serve my commanding officers with respect and dignity,
to serve the citizens of the cities of Neenah and Menasha with compassion, courage, and integrity,
to serve the citizens of the cities of Neenah and Menasha with compassion, courage, and integrity,
and to uphold the laws and the constitutions of the United States of America,
and to uphold the laws and Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Wisconsin,
the state of Wisconsin,
and the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
and the cities of Neenah and Menasha,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Yeah, there you go. Okay. I'm going to ask you each to sign your oath, please.
Thank you, Debbie. So at this time, I'd like to have Adam's wife come up and Ashley pin his badge on him. And then at this time, I'd like to have Alex's girlfriend, Ashley, come up and pin the badge on him. All right. Congratulations and welcome to Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue. Yes, that's part of the rule. They have to give just a...
Hey, Chief, I'd just like to say something to these young men. The city provides the equipment you need to perform your duties. You have an excellent staff. If you follow their leadership and you follow your training, we'll get you home every night to your families, and you have a great career if you follow those principles. Thank you.
Chief, how many years have you been with the department?
This year in September will be my 25th.
Okay, so I just want these young guys to know that 25 years ago, I met the chief in front of my house, and hopefully in 25 years, you'll have his job.
I just want to thank the city of Menasha for, first of all, hiring me. It's something I've worked really hard for many years. And thank you for the fire department. I look forward to working with a great group of guys and gals, I should say. And again, just thank you for the opportunity. And I look forward to serving a long career. Thank you.
Just like Adam, I'd like to thank the city of Menasha and also the city of Neenah for giving me the opportunity to have such a wonderful career, and I'm honored to be one of the newest member, or the newest member of their department. And I thank everybody along the way, including my girlfriend, that's helped me out. And I hope to have a long career here with the city of Neenah and Menasha on their fire department. So thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 2, the minutes and the communications. Do we have a motion? Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like to receive minutes A through H and communications I.
Do we have a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Sevenick?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to discuss the item E, Park and Recreation Board minutes. I attended that particular meeting. I spoke probably for anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes. I took a very strong position, and there was no reflection in those minutes whatsoever. And so I would ask that we hold these until I can talk to the park director about that, because I feel that's an important part of that meeting.
We're not actually approving the minutes.
I
We
realize
just
that.
accept them.
I don't even want to accept them until,
You can
I can-
remove that one from
That's
the
what I'm
list if
asking
you'd
to
like to
do.
do that. Okay.
that was the March one.
So you'd like to separate item E?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
It was the April one.
Oh, okay, these are the
Well,
March.
I've got the April one in here, so where's that one?
That's part of the ordinance. That's, I mean, they're not under minutes to receive.
Okay, the city clerk has corrected me that these particular minutes, although I read them in our packet, were in a different part, and I assume that they were this is the minutes of on the March, so the April ones are in our packet, and I guess what I can do then is, before they come before the council, is make that correction.
Alderman Kruger.
Yes, I'd actually like to discuss something on the Park and Recreation minutes also. I talked with Brian earlier today on this. I would just like a clarification on the kayak rental. It is specific in the ordinance that it states that the recommendation has to come to the Common Council when it comes to anything as leasing buildings or any boat slips within the Menasha Marina. And I'd like to get a clarification on how a lease was signed into place, even though the ordinance states that it must come before the council for approval.
I would just start with making the point that we did confer with City Attorney Captain on this prior to going to the Park Board on March 14th. And I'll let Pam, I guess, speak for herself, but I believe that we are of the opinion that there is some other sections of the ordinance that need to be looked at as well. Basically 12.15 and 12.112, I think, that gives the Park Board and to myself, to a certain extent, the authority to do that. So I don't know if Pam, if I can punt that to you here, maybe, if you want to.
So the item that's in the lease is just, in the minutes is just a discussion. We can bring something back for you, Alderman Kruger, if you'd like to.
I would prefer that it comes back for approval by the council as it is written within the ordinance, yes.
It would not come back. There is Park Board authority to do that, in the attorney's opinion, and she can speak to that if she wants.
Well,
But we could bring back some more information about it if you'd
Well,
like to.
if I could, I just want to quickly read the powers and duties in the ordinance as itself.
That's
as it
not
says.
what you're approving here. You're accepting the minutes. If you have a question about the minutes, and the minutes actually say details of a lease or some other agreement were not discussed. So that was actually on the following meeting that the lease itself was discussed.
Okay, could we get a place then on the next council to discuss this? Thank you.
Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have item I under special assessment report. Just wondering if, I don't know, Tim, if you can help with this a little bit, that this was amended because of the development agreement. Did this end up affecting any other properties for what their costs were going to be, or was it only affected as far as the assessment goes?
No, it does not affect the assessment at all. When all 9 parcels within the area of the Province Terrace street construction, they were all sent the assessments. The only thing was, in the original report that was sent out in February, there was an existing development agreement that had a number of parcels within the area that were not affected. They're calculated in the overall assessment, but they do not have to pay the assessment because of the development agreement.
So who pays those dollars?
The city does. It was part of the development agreement of the area of the TIF.
So it doesn't affect any of the property?
No,
owners
it does not.
along the way?
It does not affect, by adding one or removing one, does not make any of the other assessments higher or lower.
Okay.
And the reason why this one was inadvertently left out was when I calculated the original assessment report back in February, I looked at the map that was with the original development agreement, and within that map, this parcel was not included. But then when I was speaking with the developer, when it was brought to our attention by the developer, and he provided some additional documentation and doing a little bit further review, I did find that it was in fact added after the original agreement. And part of the original agreement, it was there was in the original agreement, there could be parcels added at a later date, and that is what in fact happened.
Sure.
And then after the documentation was presented and after we reviewed it, obviously we knew that we made an error, so that's why we had to come back with the amended special assessment report.
Okay, I assumed it was something like that. What I didn't know is we had a total dollar to do that work, and I wasn't sure how that was
No,
proportioned.
it is calculated, all of the properties are calculated in that original. It's just that who's ultimately responsible to make the payment at the end of the project is how it's affected.
And we are.
The city is, yes, because of the agreement.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. I appreciate
So
it.
the development agreement showed that TIF 9 would pay for the street special assessments in that area. So it won't be a taxpayer expense, it will be a TIF expense. That, tomato, tomato, right? But Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, back to the Park and Rec Board minutes, which are the March ones.
Yes.
There is a section in those minutes, and I just showed it to Ms. Alderman Kruger, discussing that agreement with the Park Board over there at the marina. And so there is a place at the very end of that, if he wanted to discuss that a little further. But here's a problem that I have with the old council compared to the new council, and I'd like to make a possible change, is that there should be room somewhere in here for aldermen to bring forward for the next meeting on the agenda somewhere, and if we have to make an ordinance change to do that, I'd like to propose doing that. But I agree with Alderman Kruger on that agreement. We have copies of state statutes and city policy on that, and it's quite clear, and yet the individuals will be going into business, and I don't know if contracts have been signed, but I also feel that it was done inappropriately, and therefore I think the matter needs to be discussed. And if it's not, then I'm going to ask Alderman Collier that we place this item on his Personnel Committee agenda for possibility of discussion.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda has four items this evening. The minutes to approve from the Common Council of April 18th, as well as the new Common Council from April 18th. The Planning Commission recommendation for the right-of-way vacation of the 600th block of 11th Street. And Neenah Menasha Joint Fire and Personnel Committee recommendations from April 25th for the approval of 4 dry dive suits, 4 heavy-duty gloves, 12 sets of dry suit thermal liners, and 12 head hoods from Dive Rescue International for a cost not to exceed $11,766.32. Does anyone wish to have any items separated this evening?
Item 3, Mayor.
Any others? Seeing none, could we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda minus item 3.
There's a motion and a second to approve items 1, 2, and 4. Could we have a roll call vote, please? Too late. We already had a roll call vote, and we don't discuss consent agenda items, so.
Unless you vote.
Motion carried on roll call, 8-0.
Item 3 is the right-of-way vacation for 11th Street. Do we have discussion? Alderman Seven?
Do you
Or
want
should
me
we
to
have
move it
motion
first?
too? That's
I'll
fine.
move for item 3, the right-of-way vacation of the portion of the 600 block of 11th Street.
And what this motion does is it just accepts the recommendation. There is someplace in here. Which one is it? There should be an ordinance here someplace. Don't we need an ordinance to this or not? Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. This does actually approve the vacation then. So was there a second as well? Okay. Go ahead, Alderman Sedgwick.
Thank you,
I'm
Mayor.
sorry.
I'm concerned, first of all, how it was called the 600 block, because I don't know how it's the 600 block. I would think it would be the 400 block, 400 or 500, yeah.
Well, it's a portion of the 600 block. 611th is Calder Stadium.
Okay.
So it is a portion. There's a legal description that goes along with it. It
Okay.
really doesn't have an address per se.
All right. Now that we are going to vacate the property, is that city right-of-way that we're giving to the school district?
Correct, yeah. When you vacate the right-of-way, basically what happens is the right-of-way gets split down the center. Half goes to adjoining property, the other half goes to the other adjoining property. In this case, both sides are the school district, so it would effectively go to both. Staff had recommended, and the Plan Commission also recommended, that a condition of the vacation would be that the school district combine all those, which would end up being 2 parcels together, to make one larger campus parcel.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 8-0.
Item J is ordinances and resolutions. The first is ordinance 7. Is there a motion? Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I make a motion to approve ordinance 0-7-17, an ordinance amending Title 13 by making certain changes to the district, reference 309 De Pere Street, parcel number 4-00109-00, as recommended by the Plan Commission.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Sevenick.
Sorry for all this discussion. But this particular property has had several businesses over the years, and they weren't industrial, and I'm wondering why all of a sudden the big push to have this done, because, you know, I believe it was maybe Alderman Grady that in the Planning Commission brought up the issue of the possibility of Intertape Paper, which will be a 100-year-old business this year, you know, possibly down the road acquiring that property. I just, I wonder where this came from all of a sudden.
Sure, it was actually a petition by the property owner. It came to our attention when he came in to get sign permits. One to do a personal service business and one to put up an art studio, his art studio, Studio 66, is the name of it. Those signs weren't permitted, then the uses became known that they were not permitted uses in the industrial district. I can't speak on what uses were in there in the past or why they were permitted or not. I can only tell you what the code allows as permitted uses and what it doesn't.
Yeah, because there was at least a half a dozen or more businesses in there that also had signage, and then all of a sudden now it's come to light, so.
Sure. Yeah, and again, I can only speak to what the code says, and I am relatively new here, so I don't know how those businesses switched out in the past, but It's pretty clear the code says that you would need to rezone. Additionally, it would match our comprehensive plan, which recommends commercial uses south of the tracks. So for that reason, primarily that reason, staff recommended approval.
Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as past practice goes, once you recognize you're doing something wrong, you try to correct it and not live in the past. But there was discussion as to Intertape Polymers' possible use of this property, and their interest in it, to my understanding, was for parking. And even with this zoning, they'd still be able to use it for parking if they were to acquire it. So it wouldn't have a detrimental effect on them at this point also. So we were in favor of it for those reasons. Thank you.
And I did reach out to the plant manager probably a year or so ago, and they did decline to purchase it at that point, so at least they did have that opportunity a while back. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 2 is ordinance 8. Do we have a motion? Alderman Benner?
Mr. Mayor, at this time I make a motion to approve ordinance 0-8-17 and ordinance amending Title 13, Chapter D of the Code of Ordinances for non-conforming uses, structures, and lots as recommended by the Plan Commission.
Is there a second? Second. It's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 3 is ordinance 9. Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Ordinance 9 has only been on the agenda once, so if you do wish to take that up, we would need to suspend the rules to take that up this evening. Alderman Taylor?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to suspend the rules and take up ordinance 0-9-17.
Is there a second? Motion to suspend the rules requires a 2/3 vote. I don't remember if it's debatable or not. Is there any discussion? Seeing, Alderman Benner? Before I let you go, is it debatable, Attorney Captain? Okay. It appears that it's fine, so we can discuss.
Oh.
I just wanted to make sure we could discuss before
I wasn't
let
going to
you
debate it anyways. I was just going to ask a
Okay.
question.
Sure.
Okay. You can ask a question now.
Okay, well, apparently it's
Oh.
not debatable. So we could have a roll call vote, please. It's Robert's rules, but
Motion carries on roll call 6-2.
is there a motion to take up ordinance 9 at this point?
Mr. Mayor, I make a ordinance to approve 0-9-17, an ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 8 of the Code of Ordinances, outdoor restaurant service, introduced by myself.
There's a motion and a second. Does your question still apply, Alderman Benner?
My initial question was for suspending the rules, what the urgency was to actually do that, but that's kind of a moot point. Concern I had with this particular ordinance really had to do with the use in a public area where we have public furniture. And in the event that, I'll just use the daily grind, that this affects them with that sidewalk area that goes between Main Street and the Broad Street ramp, there's some public city-owned furniture there that city owns it. Folks can hang out there all day if they wish. And I listen to quite a bit of talk radio during the day, and I hear other communities talk about folks loitering, perceived loitering on things like this. And I think it's important that something get put in the ordinance that states that a business owner can't direct somebody to not sit on city-owned furniture anymore for their purposes of serving them. So if it appears to them that they're loitering or something, the city owns the furniture. They would not have, in my opinion, any right to go out and tell them that, you're kind of in the way of us serving other folks, and we want you to move on because we own that furniture. They're taxpayers. They have a right to sit there. And I'm not exactly sure where that would get put in the ordinance, but I think that we need to look at that portion of it, and I think I'd probably rely on city staff, and he's trying to beat up his button over there before he gets a bruise on the tip of his index finger. I think I'd like to hear from him.
All right, I just wanted to comment that the ordinance itself is going to regulate the general use. If you look at the application procedures, there is a section in there under number 3, so that's on, well, the application procedures under H. After consideration of the recommendation by city staff, the common council can grant the permit for outdoor restaurant service in the right-of-way or public property by majority vote. The common council shall have the discretion in applying conditions or limitations to the permit as deemed necessary. So when the permit application comes through, because these are going to be a site-by-site specific permit application, you can put conditions on that permit as you deem necessary. So to kind of get to what you were just talking about, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but you could put a condition that all tables and chairs or all facilities be permitted for all public use as part of that conditional approval. Or you could change it around, you know, whatever you felt would be appropriate for that specific permit application. That's kind of left open-ended in the ordinance itself because it's understood that each site may have specific constraints or circumstances that require a little creative thinking on the council's side, with staff's recommendation, of course.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I had concerns with suspending the rules and approving this right away, because I wasn't sure the best way to approach this, and it would have given me 2 more weeks to talk to city staff and figure out what the appropriate thing to do is. And I don't have that answer right now. I personally, I prefer to see it in the ordinance that states that if it's city-owned property, folks don't have the right to tell them they need to come and go. I think our police department would be the folks that would be doing that. And so I'm uncomfortable with that portion of it at this point, and to do it on a case-by-case basis or put it on a permit, I think that makes it difficult from an enforcement perspective as well. So I think unless it was in the ordinance, I think that'd be the best place for it. But I don't know exactly where to put that at this point and what that language should look like.
Yeah, and off the top of my head, if you gave me a couple minutes, I could probably find a spot to put it in here. We do have a section that addresses furniture and outdoor amenities, such as chairs and tables. You could add it to that section. That's under section 7. A through G has all regulation related to public furniture and separation from fire hydrants and bus stops and that kind of stuff. So basically, the way the ordinance is drafted right now, it requires an ADA accessible route, which is 5 feet. It requires you to be 5 feet from any bus stop, curb cut opening, crosswalk, other street amenity. I mean, you could put in there under H, you add in H that any publicly owned furnishings or street furniture must remain open for public use. Something that simple. Like I said, I'm just kind of flying off the cuff here, so.
And also, in that particular space, where are we at with, I hate to bring this up, but our ADA compliance, and because they were going to put a hole in their wall for surveying or something, and they were going to do, we had problems with the way that the construction is. That, I don't know what to call the area out there, the landscaping.
Landscaping.
At this point.
It's my understanding the owner has applied with the state, Wisconsin, to get a service window put in the east facade wall.
And we're getting way far off the ordinance.
Well,
we should probably leave it at that.
Okay, well, if it was up to me because of these, I understand and I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I'll stop that portion of dialogue. I appreciate where you were with that, but I'd like to make a motion to postpone this for 2 weeks until we can get that portion. addressed.
An amendment.
I don't know what that looks like or where to put it right now. If somebody has that, I'm okay with it, but
He just kind of
Hold on. So there's a motion on the floor to postpone for 2 weeks. Is there a second to do that? There's no second at this time, so the motion would die. Alderman Taylor?
I'd just like to say that the purpose of this ordinance is to promote and encourage the revitalization of downtown and the historic Main Street areas of the city of Menasha, including the development of social and economic activity. There's a paradigm shift on this area down there with the new office building, and there's a different shift on how we're going to deal with the people in that area down there and what the businesses want to do. These two businesses have hired over 40 people, and some of them are high school kids, which is kind of neat, that they can live right in town here, walk or bike down to their place of employment, and be part of this really, if you haven't been in these restaurants, they're just amazing and what they've done with these buildings. And it's just the people that they bring in from all over. I talked to 3 ladies from Appleton last week. We're having coffee, and it's just amazing what these businesses are attracting to our downtown. And you know, there's going to be, if you will, more activity, more ways that we have to serve the people of the community and the people from outside our community. And we haven't even got into the boating season yet, so this is something that's really going to be unique to our downtown. And also this Saturday is Ladies' Day, which the business community has really done a great job promoting. Thank you.
Alderman Grady.
I'll go back to my question, maybe Alderman Brenner too. Is the Daily Grind the only one that has city property for furniture? Could it be possible that they purchased that furniture from the city of Menasha? Well, I'm just saying, then you don't have the, I mean, that's more or less my point. Or just put out benches or do something, I mean, instead of putting that restriction to stop this from passing.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I am happy to see that the boundaries were returned to include the entire C2 business district, thereby creating a more level playing field for the entire district. Thank you.
Alderman Taylor.
Both restaurants have made Ted, to answer your question, Alderman Grady, have made quite an investment in furniture. And if you've seen the furniture out in front of the Daily Grind they just purchased last week, it really looks nice, fits the area. And they're also going to put that out in the walkway area, just so their customers can use that and steer away from the public furniture out there. And I don't think they want to buy that large table out there was $24,000, and I don't think they want to buy that. So, but they have put beautiful furniture out there, and in no way would they ask people to leave or get off of city furniture property out there. That's just not their, it's not how they would operate. Thank you.
Alderman Seven.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to kind of go back to Alderman Benner's concern. The Community Development Director said that if something is needed like that it could be placed under item 7. It'd probably be it would be part, I guess we would add section 8. But to me,
well,
H. Oh,
you
yeah,
could,
what did I say?
You could put it under D7H would be a new heading. Right. If you want my opinion, I think, as I had mentioned before, it's better taken care of on a case-by-case basis. When the permits come through, you'll have 2 permits at the end of your agenda today under action items, one for the Daily Grind for outdoor service and one for the Weather Vane for outdoor service. That would be my preference, but you could put it under, that would be the logical place, 7H.
Mm-hmm. I would I would think that, I mean, for his comfort level, I'm okay with doing that, but I'm not really certain that's something that necessarily has to be put in. I think that's kind of understood. You know, like, the chief's gonna, I mean, if there's trouble or something, the police are gonna show up, and they're gonna either cite that person or ask him to leave, you know, or something like that. Right, and, well, if you want. Alderman Taylor just handed me this too, that also too, is it 2, section 2? Or 1? The mayor, police chief, or designee without notice may close an outdoor service area at any time if the health, safety, welfare, and good order of the city is threatened. So just to a degree, it's covered, but if there's something else in there that you want, I mean, I want it to work, and I want everyone to feel comfortable about that.
If you wouldn't mind, we spoke about this a little bit ahead of time. There's really two different types of areas we're talking about here. One would be the areas in front of people's businesses. I don't think there's any concerns with the furniture being their own furniture that's placed in front of their business. As Director Buck had said, when it comes to the public furniture and on a case-by-case basis, we could put that in the permit. I did talk to the owners of one of the businesses a little bit about the mixing of public and private furniture within the walkway, and I think that's where the confusion is going to come in. We had said that a solution might be to include that within their permit, that any furnishings within the walkway, don't move it as I'm trying to read it, must be available for public use regardless of business patronage. So anything that's placed within that walkway, whether it's by the business owner or the city, would be available to anyone that walked in there, because otherwise the general public isn't going to know that some of that furniture is private and some is public. And we would hate to have all the city furniture be used and then they can't walk in with their box lunch that they brought from home and sit there because the city furniture happened to be used by the restaurant. So that's what we thought might be a solution to that, and I don't know if you have further discussion, Alderman Benner, then?
No, I don't, and while we were going through that, I was going to ask the police chief his comfort level on enforcement on that. Personally, I'm a guy that likes to have stuff laid out in place up front, what there is, so you don't end up with problems down the trail. And if there's nothing in writing, but yet we're going to impose it on a permit, then I think we need to have part of a policy that goes along with that permit issuance that's documented that would say those as well. So either it has to be an ordinance form or it should be in a policy, but if we're expecting the police department to do enforcement on something, I think that what we have has to be black and white. So I guess I'd like to ask the chief his opinion.
Areas that are open for the public are for the public. We cannot, will not be removing anyone from an area in the public. They have a right to be there. So if it is in the public, unless there would be an ordinance or rule that would have to be vetted and go through the city attorney, they have a right to be there. We can't move them. It'd be no different than a person sitting on a park bench.
No, my concern was for a business owner to be telling somebody that they need to they need to move on, and they have, in my opinion, they don't have a right to do that.
That is correct. That is correct. We would not side on the side of a business owner. We would side on the right of that individual because their rights are protected. It is public property. Like you say, it would be no different than a park bench in front of someone's house and they don't want someone sitting on that park bench. We can't tell them to move.
Correct. Okay. So is this, now we've kind of done a full circle here. And where are we at this point? Because are we going to be putting it on permits as they're taken out, or?
That would be my recommendation, is to put them on the permits individually.
So
and there would be other conditions you could put on depending on if they were relevant.
And how are we going to determine what those conditions are and what that policy is going to be? I have experiences to support my concerns, so.
Well, you could think of it much like a special use permit, even though it's not a special use permit, in that staff would make a recommendation on the permit itself and give you our best professional judgment on what conditions would be appropriate, and then the council as the legislative body would either accept those or add some or remove them or make the final judgment.
So those permit requests would be coming to us, just like it would say for like a beer garden or something like that for a bar?
Correct.
So we have a chance to look at it?
Every permit will come to the council, so you'll have a chance to look at it, and you also would have the ability to revoke it if it was not performing up to expectations.
Okay. I have a little better comfort level with it then. Thank you.
Alderman Collier?
Maybe the last one to talk. I'm in favor of this ordinance because it's good for downtown, but I myself went down and talked to Director Buck. I was worried about people moving up along inside if there's a May 5th or 6th deal for the ladies or the June 17th deal downtown where there might be even more people and more people. I think this would be good, but I also think and I mean, I play hardball and some stuff, so I would think if you had and I'll just use an example, the daily grind, they had a problem, and the police officer had to go there, they would talk and work it out. If an officer had to go back there a second time in that day, they would be shut down, and then it'd be a permit thing, just like at a bar, if you got something happening, you get so many points, you lose your privilege, and it'd be clean. But until we get something, if they got to go there twice in one day, it gets shut down for that day until it gets heard. And otherwise, I think this is a great thing for downtown. I want the businesses to do well, and I hope we can work this out and go forward tonight. Thank you.
Alderman Kruger?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm in support of this, and the concern about malfeasance or something within the area, I don't think it's going to happen. There's many communities in the state that actually have this. It's commonly called sidewalk cafes. I was actually down in Shorewood today. Their whole entire main street are filled up with these type of things. In fact, they actually allow it to go into parking stalls in the street, and they build fences out there. And I actually stopped in and talked to them while I was down there today, and they have not had any issues whatsoever because the people that patronize these businesses that use this type of seating are there to eat and have a drink and then go. They're not loitering, they're not sticking around, and they're not there to get belligerent or drunk. So I don't see that big of an issue with this, and I think the way it's written right now should satisfy anything that may happen to come up, which I don't think it would.
Seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 4 is ordinance 10. Is there a motion? Alderman Zelinski?
Do we have to go the same route with this because it was only on the...
We would have to have a motion to suspend the rules and then move forward with it if that would pass.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules.
There's a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
Alderman Zelinski?
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance Title 11, Chapter 5, Code of Ordinances, offenses involving alcoholic beverages, recommended by the Park Recreation Board, introduced by myself.
Is there a second? It's a motion and a second. Discussion?
This got very muddy for me. It's not, nothing's really clear as I see it. So many things got included, it looks like, in this, but I wanted to bring this forward because I was on the park board when the future NINA representative brought this forward for us to do this event on the Trestle Trail, and I didn't know it would go this deep into ordinances. I thought it was just adding the Trestle Trail to the allowance of special use for the use of alcohol, malt beverages, and wine. But then it turns out, it looks like all these other things are opening up, and I wish I would have been in more contact when this ordinance was written out. As you can see in the minutes, in the park board minutes, it said Alderman Zelinski indicated he would follow up with the mayor to get the process moving forward. I tried following up with him, but I never really gotten any contact with him. But anyways, I guess the first thing of my biggest concern would be I know the police chief has some things to say about it. I'd just like to know his safety concerns with an ordinance change like this, especially with this event. I think our intent is to try something out along this order. That's why there's this sunset date on there. I would like to see what you think about what's...
Oh, where to bring you up to speed. This has been something that assistant park director for all the time I've spent on this in the last week. As written, you have a problem because we had a conference call today with the DNR. The DNR, those that aren't aware in the inception of this or to have everyone on the same page, the DNR actually owns the trestle. City of Menasha and the town of Menasha entered into an agreement with the DNR to lease it through 2023, where we're responsible for the maintenance and administration of the bridge, so to speak. There is a permitting process for special events through the DNR, which kind of goes hand in hand with this. They would have to approve special events that go on the bridge. One of the concerns that's been raised by the DNR, as is also a concern that we have at the police department, as well as a number of the other staff members here in the city, is when you issue a permit for the consumption of alcohol, you have to have some control over that area. We've seen over the years historically that when Jefferson Park for the 4th of July was allowed pretty much free reign of folks coming in and out, there were substantial problems. The number of those problems have severely dropped off since we've started corralling that a little bit. We certainly know that other alcohol still comes in, but it's nowhere near the free-for-all that it used to be. So the question is how, and I'm not saying with this event, because this event actually seems like a really neat event, but we also have to look at what the ordinance could potentially bring, not just for this event. So one of our concerns, as well as the DNR, is how do you have control over that area? Generally, when they would approve something like this, they indicated that the areas off of the trail is where they would do it, so then that way it can be contained. That way you're separating minors from those that are of age. So actually, one of the changes that was suggested is if we go forward with this ordinance change is to not have the full trestle trail, but just actually the 3 bump outs on the south side of the trail. That way, if this event would go through, you don't have the intermixing of people using the trail itself as recreational users and those attending this event. So that's something that I think should certainly be considered being changed or added. As far as the ordinance itself, my understanding is the content, and I wasn't responsible for the draft of it, but in the conversations I've had with other staff members, the content really hasn't changed. They basically just took everything that was in the large paragraph that was in existence before under 1151 B1, which would existed before, and they broke out all of those little subsections to the newly formed 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The only thing that is not in there that I've noticed, just to bring to your attention, is the line in the old paragraph is a permittee shall have stamped on the permit the clearly defined area which drinking, selling, or disposing of alcoholic beverages permitted. That's on the permit already, so does it really need to be in the ordinance? Probably not, but if you're looking at what was omitted or changed, just so you're aware that's been omitted or changed. So as far as the alcohol side of it, that would be the best recommendation we have going forward that would probably meet through the standard of the DNR, is to not have it on the trail itself. We could certainly go into philosophical things as far as municipalities that allow alcohol in their parks and trails and those that don't, and I can show you statistically there are more issues. I don't know that we want to get bogged down in that necessarily with this discussion, because, again, with this specific event, I really don't anticipate much of a problem. But if you're changing the ordinance, what's going to be the next group that comes to the board of the park board and says, I want something else? Other things to consider with a special event, and with the special event going through just the park board, is the common council doesn't get to weigh in on this as well. So if you have other concerns, and maybe this is a bigger, maybe I'm out of scope of this, but something else to consider. The trestle itself wasn't necessarily built for special events. What are the contingency plans if there would be a severe storm? For most events, if you have a large scale thing, with the exception of 4th of July, because you just have too many people, but if you have Seafood Fest, you could utilize the school to house people for a period of time, for example. You're looking at a trail that's 0.6 of a mile long. Where do people go? Generally speaking, there's restroom facilities that we have and are mandated, or not mandated, but suggested by the Special Events Committee, where the restroom facilities along the trestle itself. Do you rely on Fritzie Park? It's usually a little bit windier out on the trestle. What are we doing about trash collection? So there are a number of issues that, talking with the park director about, that would be vetted now through recommendations from the Special Events Committee that would go back to the park board that could make those things a part of the permission process that they would go through. I could say a lot. We could go on for hours.
Yeah.
But those are kind of the highlights of it, and that I think addresses some of the ordinance stuff. Anything, City Attorney, that I missed from our discussion with the DNR that you wanted to?
The only thing I wanted to mention is that it also, some of the changes were updating, because you may have noticed it said beer, just beer, and now the special Class B liquor license, when it's issued, does pertain to fermented malt beverages and wine. And so that's why that was added in there, because that particular type of license pertains to more than just beer. All of, perhaps some of you have seen over the years, they've have a lot of those malt beverages, flavored things, and if you ever look on the bottle, it'll say fermented malt beverage. So that's why that was changed in there, to update the ordinance.
What was brought forward during the special event meeting? That did you guys come to agreement on something, that something could be worked out specifically with the department and staff?
I think primarily there were recommendations. I think the hitching point really with the group, correct me if I'm wrong, was more the ordinance changes, and that's kind of what a lot of the discussion went around. And then some of the other things that I had talked about as far as trash, bathroom facilities, parking. If this event's going to have 300 people, where are they going to park? Most of them will probably be on the west side, I would imagine, but that's always been a concern as well. So some of those things were raised as well, but that might be going outside of the scope of what you're discussing as far as an ordinance right now.
I think the biggest thing that we talked about was the mixing of regular trail users and special events patrons, and how was that going to work? How were you going to know who was who? The speed in which people go through there on their bikes, and would that be dangerous or not? And there are some concerns about that, and this is a major transportation corridor. It's not something you can just say, go around. I mean, you're talking 30 to 45 minutes on your bike to go around this. So we did have those concerns. I think that they can probably be worked out, but we have a sunset on this as well. So if it doesn't work out, we do know that it's not going to continue happening if it doesn't work out well the first time. And I think the chief is right. This event isn't probably our bigger concern. It's, does this start happening on a weekly or monthly basis, that we have a whole bunch of special events that really interfere with the real use of this facility as a transportation corridor.
And the final one too was, see, I mentioned that, I can't believe I forgot that part, but obviously the public safety aspect of it. Should you have an incident, it's somewhat challenging to get equipment out there already, as we learned 2 years ago. But even if, wouldn't accept anything like that, but if you have a medical issue and you have an additional 300 people on there, as Chief Colon and I talked about, it can be a challenge. And anytime, I guess someone asked the question of, was this area really intended and designed to be a special event facility? Probably not. I mean, it's more of a trail, and so to do the marathon, for example, it stays open while you do have groups in the PACE groups, as you know, that you'll have a large group, they're moving, they go forward, they go through, the trail remains open through the whole thing. It's very limited issues with other folks. So it's a tough one. I mean, because this is really a neat event, but you know, all these other things kind of go along with it. And if we didn't bring these up for at least your consideration or thought on how to deal with some of them, should something go askew with any of the issues we talked about, I would hate to be thrown back to us of, hey, why didn't we bring it up?
Yeah. And that's where I struggle with this, is all these moving factors, and I'm learning about them now along with everybody else, but it's hard to delay this and work out the kinks when the event needs to be brought forward. Could you enlighten us on, I know she's here, the person who's wants the event to move forward, which entails with this ordinance. Could you speak for us? Say, can I get unanimous consent?
Do we have unanimous consent to hear from Mrs. Barker? No, I just did, and I don't see any objections.
No objection.
So, Ms. Barker, would you like to?
Good evening. I'm with you, Alderman Zelinski. I never expected to make a complicated, something that sounded so wonderful be so complicated. So I thought it was important for me to take a moment and speak to the intent of the event and what we were initially intending to do with this event. Our initial intent was really to connect our communities. We are currently helping you fundraise for Loop the Little Lake. This is intended to be a fundraising event. I think we prompted a lot more discussion and thought and ideas than we had thought would come forward, because this is new. And always with something new, it does prompt you to think about things in a different way. I guess our intent also with this event is that it was intended to fundraise. Now, the idea previous to discussion about having an ordinance change was, if we're fundraising, we hope to not be fundraising in 2025, then this is a moot point. I had hoped that there was some sort of process with the special use that you could restrict it for a one-time event and address some of these things. But as we were discussing a lot of the concerns that came up or the questions, how are you controlling the event? For one, we are ticketing the event. We have 300 people. They all have the same check-in point. We addressed parking in a variety of ways. We talked about bringing pedicabs to the table and having them transport people so that you don't clog up any neighborhoods or create concerns with parking. The intent is also to hope people bike to the event. The idea is that they're utilizing the trails and that they get to have an experience out on this trestle that's a little bit different than usual. And there are a lot of folks that haven't been out there ever. So to get them to our communities to have that experience sometimes garners support along with it. And so we talked through some of those things. We had offered solutions like, do we want medic on site? If there is a real genuine concern about how do we get to the middle of the bridge, then should we have somebody in the middle of the bridge? If there is concern about garbage, then we have a staff of however many volunteers we need to have there to be there to manage garbage. When it's 300 people and drinking for a 3-hour period, I think you got to really look at the scale and the size and the intent of the event. When I look at some of the other things that you're doing in your community to showcase it, you have another event that starts at 10 a.m. and is going until 10 p.m. and it's drinking for 12 hours, and that's a major thoroughfare. I'm guessing you're having it in your downtown, and I don't feel like we prompted as much discussion with that event, and not to take another event and throw it under the bus. I think it's a great event. I think in order to attract investment in your community and to attract the excitement for the things that you have and to build momentum, sometimes you have to think a little bit outside of the box, and that's what our hope was with this one, to fundraise and create an opportunity. The largest giver, the largest contributor to the Trestle project so far is also the one who wanted to sponsor this event. We are a little bit restricted on time frame, as you had mentioned. We didn't anticipate starting in February with this discussion at the end of February and coming to a March meeting that we would be talking about an ordinance change. So So when we look at, from an event planning standpoint, we need time to sell tickets, we need time to promote the event, we need time to put some structure around it so that we can make sure that we're delivering a quality event to your community that features you in the way that you wish to be featured. So when we looked at our dates, a lot of discussion happened at the Special Events Committee on, maybe we change the date and just give time for some of this to evolve. And that's really not possible on our end. So we are looking at a June 22nd event date. I like the idea of a sunset clause. I like the idea that you have a known entity that's been delivering quality community events to our area for 34 years, looking at doing something in your community and hoping to involve you in that. And that we can report back, having that experience, what kind of structure would you want to put around an event that you would host in this specific space? Or maybe you learn, no, we don't want to do that again ever. Maybe that's not the right space for it. So I like the opportunity to try. And I really feel like while you could theorize about will unicorns show up to the party all day long, we got to at some point just make a decision of, do we move forward, do we not move forward? So my goal tonight is hoping you decide, do we move forward, do we not move forward? And I know it's a little bit more complex than that when you're looking at an ordinance change, and you have to look at what are we going to live with for all of time. But we're talking about a special event, one time. Right now, you have a sunset clause. You can come back and evaluate. I'm happy to provide whatever feedback you want. We are insured. We assume liability. We really are cooperative and good to work with in that regard. Security was another thing that we talked about. We don't want to be taxing on the local police force. If you feel like this is an event that has some sort of concern for it, getting out of control in that 3-hour period, or people drinking too much, we do have Lion's Tail Brewery, who would be our service provider. All of them are licensed bartenders. I would hope that we wouldn't have those concerns, but if we do, and that's something that's a real concern to you, we want to make sure that we are being a good partner for you in that regard. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer questions, but I just wanted to get back to what is the intent of the event. And Parks Commission, when Alex was there, we had a great discussion there. We talked through some things, and they voted unanimously, and we're very excited about the event. So I hope that you guys are too.
Alderman Seven?
I'd ask that you stay up there because I might have a question for you, but I do want to make a few comments. Usually when we do have these special events, do we not hire the police? We have, doesn't the event have to hire officers?
No.
It's not a requirement?
Depends
Is
on.
it something they can do, though?
Yes.
Right.
And it can be
And some
forced
events,
upon them.
I know in Menasha have done that.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
It can either be forced upon them, or it can be a discussion depending on the event.
Okay, thank you. I think too, she hit it on the head that, let's give this an opportunity to evolve. The mayor and I talked a couple weeks ago about this, and I think he had a brilliant idea about and staff about the sunset clause, because if it becomes a situation that we don't like, it's done with, and we don't have to deal with it. So to me, that's the strongest part of that ordinance. And then it's the issue with the DNR. Obviously, your group, not us, we don't have to worry about the DNR part. We need to create an ordinance. The DNR part is not our business, it's theirs. So they'll deal with that. And then as far as Fritzie Park, now my question for you is your organization using any of that other than like the bathrooms and things like that?
We are waiting to find out what your guidelines are and your restrictions, and if we're moving forward. And then we are also on an agenda in May in Fox Crossing, so that we can talk to them about what that looks like on their end, should we need to utilize that. Our hope was that we could primarily focus on the bridge, feature our local restaurants from Nina, Menasha, and Fox Crossings, and have them, towards the ends. Our hope was to do alcohol service in the middle to promote people going back and forth and experiencing all food and beverage and desserts in the middle. If we need a different layout than that, that could certainly change our use of space, I guess, based on restrictions. I think there was a mention of restrooms. Obviously, with Fritzie Park being the nearest restrooms, we don't want to overtax the nearest restrooms either. However, I would say we have lots of people that we don't control the number of people on that bridge at any given time because it is a trail. So I just want to be mindful of 300 people, how many restrooms would we use? And, you know, if it's a really nice day on a Thursday, we might want to have porta potties or work with some version of that if we feel like it's needed. So that would be our next steps with the Village of Fox Crossings. So we're waiting on you.
What was the possible date again?
June 22nd.
Oh, it usually rains on that day.
We're under the dome.
I know other council members want to speak.
Alderman Collier?
I'm a little leery on this. I love the idea, the food, the people getting together. It's super. But like you say, if it's a windy day, trash is going to be a problem, and I don't care how many people you have, but it could be a perfect day, sunny, and everybody will talk about it for years. I worry about people crossing and getting intermingled if it's out on one of those sections. The policing of it's very important, and if it comes to commodes, I don't know if you can put one on the bridge.
We wouldn't want to put one on the bridge. I would just look at a nearby area that it would make sense.
Yeah, on either end or whatever. And you would need a staging area for your people to drop stuff off, so you'd probably end up using Fox Crossings, because that's the closest to get on.
During setup?
Yeah, that's how I look at it. But I have a tough time with it. I want it to go forward, but I'm probably going to vote no because I'm worried about the people that go across. If I know where you're putting it, if it was on the middle of the bridge and all this, but if it goes to the bump outs, okay, Charlie Smith fishes for 4 hours. He's there before you get there. What are you going to tell him? You know, Chuck Jones walks through and he wants to have a beer, but everybody's having beer. Somebody get phone calls. I get phone calls on the park still, you know. But I wish you luck. I'd like to talk to Alex sometime on the side about this one because he's got to be caught in the middle now, and it's got to be tough. But I want the Trestle Bridge. I want it to be used, and I don't know if it should be used as a restaurant and a bar. So, good luck.
So some of the things that we talked about in regards to garbage and traffic and communication, there are some opportunities that we have well in advance, especially at this point. When you're selling tickets, you have an ability to communicate with those ticket holders. So we can be making them mindful of things like, you know, if it's a windy day, we need to be hanging on to our garbage. We're fundraising to create an area and a space that is embraced by our community. Please, I would think that we would have some respectful opportunities there. One of the other things we talked about was with our everyday trail users, and how are we communicating to them that there is a special event on this day so that they can plan ahead for it. And we talked about, much like the Loop the Lake yard signs, we can do some things in weeks before the event that communicates, one, there's an opportunity for you to participate in something really cool happening in your community. If you'd like to join and be a part of it, here's more information. But also it communicates that if you use this as your main thoroughfare during this time frame, there's going to be something unique happening. You might want to consider rerouting or not using it as your thoroughfare, or at least know to proceed slowly. So we are staffed at both ends of the bridge too, heavily staffed at both ends of the bridge, so that we can talk to folks before they go out there and they're anticipating their normal fishing experience or their normal biking experience, that we can say, hey, welcome, thank you for coming. I know that you're here to do what you normally do. However, today this is what's happening, just so you are aware. Proceed with caution, be careful as you move forward, or, you know, be mindful of your dog that might be cutting through. You know, keep it a little bit shorter on the leash because there's food that might look interesting to said dog.
Alderman Kruger?
Yeah, I had two questions. Chief Steike, you mentioned that the state technically owns the property, and I know state statutes does state that if there's any county or state parks or lands within a city municipality, that county or state are the ones that can regulate what happens or goes onto that land. So my first question is, if it's state land and even if we're leasing it, does the city still have the authority to make an ordinance to say what's going to happen on that bridge? If the state statute says that any state land within city boundaries is actually regulated by the state or the county, whoever owns it.
You have a comment?
Yes, we can, according to the DNR in our conversation. However, there's, the rule that you create has to be in coincide with what the DNR also wants, because they are still the owner of it. We are the manager of it, or we're the overseer of it. In addition, in the agreement, it also states that the town of Menasha and the city of Menasha co-lease the bridge, and any change in purpose or difference with the bridge has to be jointly agreed upon. So depending on how you interpret that, they would also have to agree to our change of the use of the trestle to be used as a special event area, as well as whatever would be decided as far as alcohol consumption on the bridge, the bump outs, or what have you. That raises another question, and that's all, probably a closed session meeting, I don't know.
But with your discussion of, with the DNR, then, does it seem like it's gonna take longer to sit there and work this out, where our ordinance would coincide with what they would accept, and with Fox Crossing or Town of Menasha, or the other?
They would have concerns if it is on the entire bridge.
Okay.
If it is on the bump outs, because that can be separated, they do not have a concern with the ordinance.
Okay.
Is my recollection of the exact comment. And correct me if I misinterpreted that. The bump outs, they indicated would be okay, and the whole trestle was fine.
Attorney Captain.
It was indicated that if it was just the bump out areas, that would be, they would likely be more amenable to that. It does not mean that they would not approve it the way it is with just saying the trestle trail. It just would have to go a different process or higher up through the DNR level.
Okay. And my second and last question is, having to do with the sunset clause. Basically, what we're doing here is changing an ordinance to benefit one single entity at the moment, even with the sunset clause. Is there an issue with that? Because if my memory serves me right, there might be an issue on changing an ordinance to benefit one particular entity. Is that an issue with doing it this way with the sunset clause coming down the road in August?
It's not that quick, though, is it? Attorney Captain.
Special legislation would be applicable only to one person or one company or something like that. That is not the way that this is written.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I like the thought of thinking outside the box, and certainly to turn our $1.2 million trestle trail into an event like this is really a unique idea, and certainly the background that Future NINA brings to the table here is certainly an organization that does things to its best ability. And, you know, they've turned the downtown into a basketball court. Years ago, we turned our downtown into a race course, and so there's different unique things that we try to do in our communities. And what a wonderful idea to try to connect both communities and with this creative cuisine idea. Fox Crossing has some wonderful facilities on the west side. I think if you work with their park department and for that short period of time to have that staffed by them and to keep everything fresh and clean. I know we've done that with our park department too at times, and it really works out nice and it benefits everybody. And I know Future NINA has a great relationship with Menasha Corporation, who provides these wonderful recyclable type of garbage cans and receptacles throughout an event. And I know you guys, any event you have, it's always been just, I know you have these cleanup crews, you have constant crews out there picking up, and I'm sure you're going to have enough receptacles out there to make it a great event. And they look so nice too, these containers that the Menasha Corporation makes. So I think it's I'm glad there's a sunset clause in, and that's just for anybody that may have some concerns, and we can go back at it next year and look at it again differently. But it's a unique opportunity, and I hope Alderman Severnick's wrong with the rain. Thanks.
Me too.
You guys will keep coming after me.
What are you, the
Zelinski?
meteorologist?
Thank you. Who rewrote this ordinance, revised?
It was mainly Director Tungate.
Yeah, it was a group effort. City clerk and Stephanie assisted with that. I had a hand in it, so it's kind of a group effort.
I'd like to make an amendment to remove my name from this ordinance because I was not involved in writing this out. I was hardly contacted.
Well, you were the one who initiated it,
I didn't-
and if it does not have an author, it cannot come before the common council. So
I wish I was contacted more about this, but I guess as it goes forward, pending review by the Special Events Committee, what did the Special Events, so this is brought forward by the Special Events Committee, and what should does something have to be changed in it to facilitate with just the bump outs, that we would have the...
Well, just to clarify, this came from the Park and Rec Board, so they had 3 stipulations in their action item. One was that the event should stay within the bump outs, which coincides with really what DNR wants. And then they also came up with that they wanted staff to pursue an ordinance change because the park board liked the idea of having alcohol for the event. So that was, one of the other things they did. And then the special event piece was, for example, the event should touch base with Todd Drew, to serve the food correctly, those sorts of things. Typically what we do with virtually all special events like this, we have an on-site meeting where, we get into the nitty-gritty of where are the garbage cans going, where are the tables going, those sorts of things. So that's really the intent of sending it back to, any kind of final review from the special event committee. The health department, can weigh in, for example, just some last minute suggestions for the event. But it really came from the Park and Rec Board. And just to echo what Chief Stika was saying, the DNR, yes, they really very, very strong preference for doing it within the bump outs. I have talked to Amy about that a little bit. Hope that works out for her event. They also had a strong preference for leaving the trail open. It's a rec trail and a transportation corridor first and foremost. So I think we all see eye to eye on that we need to leave the trail open. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
In the specific ordinance, it says just the trestle trail or the trestle trail bump outs? Because I read in here that it said trestle trail.
So that would be, I guess, the one change between when I wrote this memo and to this moment is that we had this conversation with DNR, and so perhaps it should be changed onto the the bump outs. That's what DNR's preference is, and maybe that's what we need to have clarified there. And the other thing I wanted to add was this ordinance change doesn't allow an individual to come to the park department and get what's commonly referred to as a beer permit. You can't do that. You can't get your 12-pack and sit on your bucket and fish there right now. This is for events who need a Class B liquor license. So that's the other thing I think that maybe needed some clarification. But I guess we wrote that to try to be sensitive to this one-time event. We didn't want to have beer everywhere on the trestle.
So would we need an amendment for that, for it just to be the bump outs of the trestle trail?
Be careful of what you do, though, because then the areas just outside of the trestle, the trail leading up to it, would not have anything allowable either. Whereas you read it now, the grassy areas, like down by the settling basin, would also be included, and I think that Amy would like to have that opportunity to do that. So that would be set then within the special events committee and the permit that's being permitted to them.
All right.
I guess I don't want to create any situation where enforcement becomes a concern, that if you're standing with a wine and you're at a bump out and now you want to walk to the restaurant that's on the other side, because remember our goal was to encourage, really utilizing that whole section and experiencing that. If you're walking away with your wine, now you've created a situation that I have to enforce and say, I'm sorry, please set your wine here while you walk and get food from the restaurant Weather Vane down the street or down the path, and then come back and get your wine later and finish it. I mean, that really adds some complexity to the event that I guess I'm waiting to hear what you have for guidelines and restrictions, but we have to go back and evaluate what makes the most sense for the sake of the event and for the experience that we want to create for the sake of fundraising for the trail. And if it created something that now, I heard a lot of concerns about the normal trail user and inconveniencing them, but if you have people who now paid to be at an event and are donating money to a cause, and then you're putting a bunch of rules and like, no, set this here, be there, and we will absolutely follow that to a T, but to me, that would make more sense to not have the event and not move forward if it got overly complex to communicate.
Alderman Taylor?
Just wanted to mention there is a restroom on the east side of the trestle at the end of Broad Street. You would need to contact Bob Stark from the Fox River Authority to have that open.
Okay.
So there is one this far in.
Wonderful.
Actually, the city Park and Rec manages that, so Brian and Vince can take care of that for you. It's owned by the...
Did you hear that?
Yep, Navigational Authority, but we maintain it. Yes. Alderman Nichols? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here this evening and bringing some clarity to the event that you're trying to organize. And I appreciate that that the organization is trying to raise funds for the Loop the Lake project. I am very conflicted about allowing alcohol on the Trestle Trail. The Trestle Trail is a place that people for many years have enjoyed because it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's a place to enjoy the sights and sounds of nature, and it's truly a family-friendly place where people are happy to be there and friendly to each other. I feel strongly the police department and the fire department have some legitimate concerns about events in general on the Trestle Trail, and I'm concerned about us hastily moving through an ordinance change without taking the adequate time to think through possible outcomes and scenarios, or having the customary time for the community to weigh in on the changes as well. I'm not convinced, and this is after a lot of thought, that the Trestle Trail is an appropriate place for this sort of event, and I'm really fundamentally opposed to introducing alcohol to the Trestle Trail. So for those reasons, I will not be supporting this ordinance.
Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy, thanks for coming tonight. It's been interesting dialogue. I am in favor of this event. I'm really happy you're doing it. I think that it's doing it in a spot that's going to draw a lot of attention to the total purpose of the trail, and primarily the main focal point to how this whole trail came around. And I think for probably a one-time event, it's going to be good. I think the people that are going to be here are not folks that anybody would need to be afraid of by any stretch or to worry about on this, if they're going to go across this event. In fact, I can't help but believe that somebody just going across the trail wouldn't feel welcome by anybody that would be participating in this. And I like the event. I think there's other challenges that go along with it that I think are going to take care of themselves. A lot of it is with the DNR. And as Alderman Sevenich said, that will take care of itself and kind of police itself. Probably my biggest concern is from an emergency services perspective and from a perspective of really bad weather or, again, heaven forbid anything bad happened to somebody for some reason. And so I look to the chief, the police chief and the fire chief, both of those, for that. And what that could look like, say if anybody identifies that we have bad weather coming and that we can't do this, what that notification is going to look like in the respect of that notification and in what level that's going to come from, if it's the police or the fire or both, and
Probably us.
what kind of notification that may be or whatever to say, nope, we're going to do this on June 29th because Stan said June 22nd doesn't work. And really what that's going to look like, because you know, you never want to have anybody rescuing a rescuer or have anything bad going on like that. And if somebody says, Ms. Barker, we're not going to have an event today, and that comes from the police or the fire, I think we're not going to have an event. And I'm not only looking for feedback from you, but from the police and fire as well, as to what that might look like, because it really does put us in a different situation. You know, you're on the water, you're on a trail, and it's not like you can back your cube truck up and load your tent up and all your stuff and go, or you can't just come out and say, okay, we're leaving, we have a defined way in and a defined way out. And that can't happen in a matter of minutes. I think that's going to take a fair amount of notification for somebody watching what's going on. And so I would be looking to our fire chief and our police chief for feedback on what that might look like from their perspective. Kevin's been quiet tonight. We'll hear from him.
One of the things we can do is we can sit down beforehand and put a plan in place, whether it's make sure we have cell phones to contact who's ever running the event at the Trestle Trail. That's going to be the easiest way for us to just have contact, make sure that our shift commander has phone numbers and what to do in case of an emergency. We could have staff available, I guess. We could make sure we have somebody there, or we could have somebody checking in periodically to make sure things are okay. But I guess the biggest thing, because of where it's located and, like you said, access on one side or the other, I think phones or cell phones would be the best way to contact the event coordinator. And we would have to sit down and put a plan together, an emergency plan. We would have to monitor, I could see the shift commander monitoring weather just, ahead of time and just being in contact because of the access points.
If we go out there, we go out there with a gator or something, though, or?
I don't know if on our side, I don't know if we can get one through there. We probably could on the other side if we were at Fritzie Park. Maybe it's something we work with Fox Crossing with and coordinate that.
Well, in our ordinance just before this that we were talking about, we talked about conditions that could be put on a permit, and I guess I'm wondering at this point what that looks like if we sit down and we talk about it, define what those conditions are and how it's going to go forward before that permit is actually issued, because this is an ordinance stage at this point, and I don't want the mayor yelling at me about a point of order. But
that's what the attorney's been poking me at.
No.
That's typically what our special events committee does, though. When the special events committee gets together, they look at some of those type of items and start talking about what those conditions might be, whether certain streets can only be closed, whether an area needs to be fenced. You had talked a little bit, somebody had talked about police officers at one point. Are we going to require security or auxiliary police or extra police? All those types of things are typically what we talk about at that meeting. And I think Amy had it on the head that if it looks like bad weather, this isn't going to be set up in 20 minutes. So she's probably going to make the call by noon that it's going to happen or
But
isn't
all of
gonna
that will
happen.
be conditioned to the permit at this point. We're really not talking about that. We're talking about the ordinance, I guess. But,
Exactly.
you know, the ordinance is kind of specialized in itself, and I certainly have an appreciation for the concerns. But I am in favor of the event and the ordinance change, especially with the sunset. And
I like the idea of having medical on site. I think the middle of the bridge poses a unique situation with accessibility. So that is one of the things that I want to look into. We haven't done an event out there either. So it is unique to that space and something that I would like to be preventative or proactive about rather than wait for something to happen. So safety is obviously going to be of utmost concern. I don't think we're participating in any activities that are rowdy or doing cartwheels or craziness that would cause harm, but I am also hearing a lot of, please hear what I'm not saying, in the sense of we had an incident out there, and I just wanted to let you know how much thought was given to not necessarily this event, but moving forward with fundraising for the project in general, because of the timing. We had a joint council meeting in March, and then we had an incident in May. And if you don't think that stopped me in my tracks right there, it absolutely did. And that might have been a point to just say, this is not the time, this is not appropriate, let's just not go there. And I'm feeling a lot of that in some of our discussion, and I've been trying to figure out what are we not addressing in our plan for this event, and I'm really feeling a little bit like it's not necessarily about this event. One of the reasons why we did move forward as Future Nina, and I can just speak for us, is I feel like it's really important to bring our communities together and re-embrace this space as a peaceful one and a positive one for a community, because that's the intent it was built for. And we need a chance to heal and celebrate that in some way by coming together again. And that was part of my thought process in this event too. I mean, we're not, alcohol is by no means the focus of this event. Our communities coming together is the focus of the event. Our communities investing in a Trussell project is the focus. The food is a focus, for sure. We really are, you mentioned the health department. We're really focusing on our licensed restaurants that serve us food every day in a healthy and safe manner. So we're not talking about me baking pies because you might not want to eat them. I promise you. Well, they look cool, but they might not taste good. So I just wanted to be clear about some of those things because, like I said, we could theorize about what could happen, what couldn't happen all day long. But the sad and scary reality that I think we all have trouble grappling with is any of those things can happen on the sidewalk in front of us at any given point. The purpose of celebrating our community, it can't go away just because a lot of things could happen. So I thought it was important to just throw that out there to let you know that I'm very mindful of the things you're not saying. And I want to make sure that safety is of the utmost importance. So if that means whatever that means to you, I think that's really important to put in the special event process when you're permitting some things, and to be mindful of that, and to take a lot of time and vet that. And I don't think that comes at this time with an ordinance change, but it does come at some time. And that's why I liked the idea of a sunset clause. It allows for the things that you feel like this is a good thing and you want it to happen, but it also gives you a little bit more time to think through what else do we want to include as perimeters. And if there's ever any guinea pig to experiment on, Future Nina as an event organizer is a pretty good one that can give you some good quality feedback and some guidance to that. Because, we just passed the torch on street ball. You had mentioned street ball. Yeah, we did turn downtown into a basketball court. And we're going to see this year what that looks like when somebody else tries to do that. And maybe it will be awesome. And we've tried to certainly provide guidance for that. There's a lot more that goes into event planning than you would ever want or care to know. And we work through those details at a staff level too. And very much appreciate the fact that you have a special events committee that is made up of staff, and they are very mindful and thinking through a lot of those details and, hand-holding in that process too. And I think that's a wonderful process and a group of people to be doing that. Not every community has that as a form of process. I've been struggling with some frustration on, well, the Parks Commission said yes. The special events, committee the first time seemed really excited about it. What is our process here? And, who has the final say? And when do we know if we can have this event or not? So that has been my source of frustration. And I think it's just because you're trying to vet these things and you're trying to think about the things that you're not saying too.
Just for clarification, my concerns were a bad storm, a fall, a heart attack, a burn from cooking, or a fire from cooking. Those are my concerns.
Yeah. And
I try not to live in the past too much.
Well, and I'm thinking of when we have events in Shattuck Park, for example, we have a defibrillator there. And that's not something that we have in the middle of the bridge. And should we? And maybe those are good things to think about. And you guys know your space better than anyone. So I look forward to working with staff on working through some of those details to make sure that we're really setting the stage for a safe and wonderful event where we can bring our communities together.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. And that was a nice segue to what I had to say next. And I wanted to be very clear that my concerns are not with Future Nina as an organization or with the people who who could be attending this event. My concerns are about the big picture of what this ordinance means for our community from this point forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice job, Amy. I'm kind of a numbers guy, so I kind of look black and white, and I'm just kind of figuring here, do you have any idea about how much this event would raise? Any type of numbers? Don't have to be...
Well, we have 300 people, since you're the numbers guy, and I will admittedly say I'm not perfect where I dwell there. We have 300 people. We wanted to have a low cost of entry point for the ticketed event. So the tickets are going to be about $30, $25 to $30. So you got your 300 times 30. Then we get a percentage of sale off the alcohol. That's where there's some importance in beverage sales because it's another fundraising opportunity. Then we have potential of, and that's really them donating back whatever they feel is important. Then we want to look ahead to the future and what other amenities we might want this trail to have. We might want to talk about some art. We have the symphony having music of some form in small versions with limited space and being mindful of that. So we have some other fundraising opportunities where we can be more active about that discussion as the event takes place. So that might garner more funds. So we have a baseline that we have to work off of to make sure that the event is worthwhile to pursue. Otherwise, if you're going to lose money on it, that really wasn't a good fundraiser, was it?
No, exactly. Okay, thank you. I also like the idea of the sunset clause in there too, that leaves things open for discussion later on. Thank you.
I really do wish you the best of luck. I love Future Nina. I wish we had a little sister in Menasha doing the same thing, but I can only wish. I got concerns, and I know the 300 people out there are going to be excellent. They're going to be good people. You're going to have excellent food, and everything's going to be beautiful, I hope, that day. But like I say, I'm worried about wind conditions, rain, and of course, you would call that if it was going to be a terrible day. Would you have a backup plan, or would you just set a different date?
That's a good question, because we'd have to see if we have the capability of rescheduling based on who's participating as restaurants. And so we wouldn't have, I don't think you can do Taste on the Trestle and have a rain location, for example, because it's not the same. But those are the things that we could talk through. Do we have a rain location? Do we have a different date? And, maybe it's just missed opportunity if the weather is terrible. we do have the capability to notify, obviously, if we're ticketing and we're communicating with them ahead of time. If there's inclement weather, they should all know well in advance or as soon as we know. And sometimes that means we do the same with community concerts. So that's at a much larger scale, and we don't know who's planning on coming to the concert. So we're happy to do that.
So right now, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve ordinance 10-17. And seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 5-3.
That was 10, right? Okay. So ordinance, item number 5 is ordinance 11, and that's the sister ordinance for the one that we just did. Do we have a motion? Alderman Zelinski?
I make the motion to approve 011-17 ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 2, Article A of Code and Ordinances, fermented malt beverages, intoxicating liquor, recommended Park Board, Recreation, introduced by myself.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Alderman Nichols?
Director Tungate, could you provide a summary of what this ordinance does?
Is that the second one there?
Yes. Number 11.
Well, I think City Attorney Captain touched on it. It talks more about the malt beverage piece of it. And there's probably either Debbie or Pam, maybe better than I, to explain the changes. I know we took away the 6% alcohol by volume in original package and made that, I think, just beer and wine, just straight beer and wine. I think that's the essence of that change, isn't it? I believe.
Did you want to comment, Clerk Galeazzi? She just said yes, that's the essence of it.
Yes, that is correct, what Director Tungate had just said.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
Item 6 is resolution -11-17. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger?
I'll make a motion to approve R11-17, resolution to approve the cancellation of outstanding checks and the write-off of general uncollectible accounts receivables and delinquent personal property receivables.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? Seeing no discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item K is action items. The first item is the accounts payable and payroll for April 20th through 27th. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger?
I'll make the motion to approve accounts payable and payroll for the term of 4/2017 through 4/27/2017 and the amount of $843,494.62.
Is there any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a second? There's a motion, a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 2 is the beverage operator license applications for 2015 through 2017. You'll notice that there's only one memo for both items, but if there's a motion for item 2. Alderman Kruger?
I'll make the motion to approve beverage operators license applications for the 2015-2017 licensing period.
There's a motion and a second, and I'm going to interpret that as recommended by the police department in the memo, correct? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
And item 3, we'll get there. Item 3 is the beverage operators license applications for the 2017 through 2019 licensing period. Is there a motion? Alderman Kruger?
I'll make the motion to approve the beverage operators license applications for the years 2017 to 2019 licensing period per the memo.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 4 is a change of agent for the Plank Park Pub LLC. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger?
I'll make the motion for the change of agent for Plank Road Pub LLC, doing business as Plank Road Pub, to 800 Plank Road, Menasha, for the 2016-2017 licensing year.
Is there a second? It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 5 is the Class B liquor license for the Menasha Athletic Association. Is there a motion? Alderman Kruger?
I'll make the motion to approve the Class B liquor license application from Menasha Athletic Association to sell fermented malted beverages at Coslow Park Concession Stand, May 1st, 2017 to October 31st, 2017. Carol J. Werschel, agent.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Taylor?
I don't see much difference in this and the trestle bridge out there, and this is in one of our parks. We serve alcohol. It's our structure, and nobody's in charge of weather.
Alderman Collier?
The difference is that you're in a contained area. They got places to go if there's a problem, and it's not on a bridge over water.
There's a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 6 is an outdoor serve permit for Patrick Dufresne doing business as a weather vane. Is there a motion? Alderman Kruger?
I'll make the motion to approve the outdoor serve permit for Patrick Dufresne doing business as the Weather Vane Restaurant at 186 Main Street, Menasha, for the 2016-2017 licensing year.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 7 is an outdoor serve permit from Rebecca Matter, doing business as Your Daily Grind. Is there a motion? Alderman Kruger?
I'll make the motion to approve the outdoor serve permit for Rebecca Mater doing business as Your Daily Grind at 204 Main Street, Menasha, for the 2016-2017 licensing year.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. On the picture that we have, are the X's the places which they are, and then the rectangle, which I assume represents the community table, are those the places in which they wish to have outdoor service?
The way they explained it to me is yes, some of those are city-owned tables and some of those are tables that would be owned by them.
Okay.
So there's 2, 4, 5, 11 tables in the community table.
Okay. So that brings us to the question that Alderman Benner proposed during the discussion about the outdoor service ordinance, that being how can the community be insured a spot at the table even though they may not be purchasing food or beverage from that restaurant, since we are in a public facility?
And you could place restrictions on either some or all of the tables. depending on what your desire is as a common council. Attorney Captain, did you want to comment on that, or was that the other half that you still? We'll finish this first.
Okay. Did I hear some proposed language to accomplish that in earlier discussions?
She turned the page on me. What we had talked about earlier was furnishings in the walkway must be available for public use regardless of business patronage. So that would exclude the 3 in front of their business and the 1 behind, but not the ones that were in the public walkway.
Okay, so I would like to move that we include that language with this permit.
Is that a motion to amend?
Let me rephrase that, please.
Okay.
I feel strongly that this walkway was sold to the community as Menasha's living room and funded with public dollars, and that it would be prudent for us to make sure that all members of the community are welcome in that public space, regardless of whether or not they are there, whether or not they'll be purchasing food or beverage from a neighboring restaurant. And so I would like to move that we include that mentioned language as part of the permit for this outdoor service.
Okay, so there would be a motion to amend the application to include the language, furnishings in the walkway must be available for public use regardless of business patronage.
I move for that amendment.
Okay, so is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Alderman Sevenick?
Yeah, could you repeat what you had said earlier? That means eliminating certain tables? Could you
So
repeat
that would only apply to the tables that are within the walkway. So they have shown 3
Oh,
tables,
you
I
mean
believe.
that anybody can use them, but you're not eliminating them?
No, anyone can use those.
Right.
The ones in front of their business, the 3 in front and the 1 behind, they could restrict those to
Right.
just their patrons.
Okay, sure, sure, no biggie then.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
I don't
Steve?
think it's even an issue.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote on the amendment?
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
And then the attorney wanted to have me remind you that there's a few minor issues with the insurance and actually delineating the exact spaces that we're going to have to clean up on these. Did you want to elaborate?
The spaces have to be better defined, so just so everyone's aware, we're going to, both of the applications will have to specifically identify, 4 feet by 16 feet by whatever it is, or what the locations of the tables are. And the insurance requirements have not been met, and so we have to work with them on getting those things, just so everyone's aware.
Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Try again. There you go.
There we go.
I cut someone off. I don't know who it was, but
Do we need because I'm okay with once their responsibilities are satisfied, are the things that you mentioned, Attorney Captain, is that part of the policy for the permit?
Correct.
So once staff recognizes that they've met those obligations, then I think do we need this to have a conditional approval? That staff, that it meets the minimum requirements of the policy?
this is a very new process. And these permits only last through June 30th as well. So then they have to reapply with their new liquor license. So we're looking at a month and a half here. So I'm
not
comfortable
my
with
point,
just
yeah.
moving forward at this point.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with as
And then we'll
long as.
have the finalized drawings and insurance, and we'll know what we're doing for the
Yeah, but they'll
July
get it once they've
licensing period.
satisfied the minimum requirements of the
Yes.
permit, but that doesn't take any additional action from this board,
Exactly.
from this council, correct?
Exactly.
Just approved as stated is fine?
Normally, we would not do this on liquor licenses. And I'm sure that Debbie is trying to kick me under the table, but I'm far enough away from her.
Normally, it would not be on the agenda, either of them.
So I'm comfortable with it in this case.
Okay. Otherwise, I would have made the amendment, but that's fine.
Alderman Severnick?
Could you help me out with the liability issue that you were talking about? I thought I read that they did meet the liquor liability because they were issued also, both of these places were issued a fermented malt beverage liquor license for inside their place. So so you're asking that there has to be an additional indemnification for added? Okay. You answer my question then.
Alderman Zelensky?
Yes, just a quick question. Who would be, I guess, responsible for cleanup in these areas? The owners of 204
Yes.
Main and, okay.
We could revoke the permit if they are not keeping it to standards.
Okay. And what about the standards as far as snow plowing? I don't know if anybody's gonna wanna have their coffee or beer out there in the winter, but.
This furniture, I believe, needs to be removed as of.
Oh, November 30th, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
Item N is public comments on any matter listed on the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment at this point? On agenda items, yes.
I know I've been listening to the whole conversation here about this, and I think there's a lot of concern that's not really there as far as the use, the public use. I don't know how many people actually have been downtown and have either anybody on the council that's actually utilized the space or has seen people there, but there's been a lot of talk back and forth about the use of the space. I have no problem with anybody using the space. Obviously, it's a public space. I'm thankful that you guys are allowing us to utilize that space as well, but I guess my only concern is that you are looking at it as we're going to go out there and tell people not to sit in those spaces. And it's not a used space as it is. That's why we're hoping to bring more people to the downtown by offering something downtown that isn't there now and that can allow the downtown to actually grow and to be more of a downtown. You see these areas in other locations. Appleton's has them, and Oshkosh has them, and they bring more people to the downtown, not less. And I guess I just feel as a business owner that it's something that the council needs to look at as a growing opportunity, not something that they need to micromanage to the point where, you know, you have law enforcement that is there for that reason. They've already stated that they're not going to come in and side on the part of the business owner. They're going to side on the part of the person that's there. So I guess that's my only discouraging part of this whole thing. But I do appreciate everybody that is for this and that will hopefully be utilizing the downtown more than what it's being utilized right now, because there is a lot of opportunity down there, and we're seeing it build on a regular basis now, and we hope that this just continues and that we get a lot of support from the city for the continued growth. And I do appreciate a lot of the work that a lot of the people on this council and on the works for the city that have put into this, and for continued growth. Thank you.
Thank you. On a similar note, it was really encouraging to see the number of prom pictures that were taken in that little walkway over the weekend. So it is getting used and people are proud of it, and that's really nice to see. At this point, do we have a motion to recess? Are you the expert at recessing?
Actually, we're just making a motion to recess in the committees.
Yes. Is there a second? All those in favor? We stand at recess. Thank you.
Are we